My daughter humiliated my wife at our anniversary party by bringing up her infertility and then refusing to apologize. So I cut her off, but she came back crying, saying her aunt had used her. Hey, I'm 40 and my daughter Jade is 17. Things have been a bit rocky between us over the last few years. Jade's mom, my ex-wife, died 9 years ago. We were high school sweethearts and got married right after college, but things went south pretty quickly. We had been divorced for 2 years when she died from a seizure in her sleep. At the time, Jade was splitting her time between us, living with each of us for half the month. Unfortunately, she was with her mom when it happened. I think something just broke inside my daughter that day. She's never been the same since, and she was even diagnosed with clinical depression because she went into shock when her mom died. They were super close, so it didn't surprise me, but it killed me to see her like that. She used to be this happy, fun-loving kid, but after her mom passed, she shut everyone out and got really snappy if anyone tried to talk to her. Sometimes I'd catch her talking to herself and stuff like that. So I had to take her to a psychiatrist, and they told us she had depression and had developed severe anxiety, which was why she couldn't even sleep at night. They prescribed a bunch of meds, and I made sure she took them religiously, no matter how much she fought it, and insisted she was fine. I was grieving the loss of my ex-wife and didn't want anything bad to happen to my daughter, so for the next couple of years, I was all about taking care of her and making sure she was okay. And after a few years, she got better and was back to her old self again. I was thrilled for her and figured maybe I could get back to living my life, especially since I'd come to terms with my ex-wife's passing. I wasn't exactly hitting the dating scene, but a buddy told me about his cousin who'd reached out after seeing me at his wedding. He gave her my number after I said it was cool, and we started chatting. That woman is now my wife, Carol, who's 36. At first, we just texted and flirted a bit here and there. I was totally upfront about my past and how my daughter would always come first, and she seemed okay with it. After 3 months of texting, we finally met up and went on several dates after that. After almost 6 months of dating, I brought her home to meet Jade. I thought it would go smoothly since Jade seemed to be doing better, but man, was I wrong. Jade was not happy about this new relationship at all. The moment I introduced her to Carol and mentioned we were seeing each other, she made a face and snapped that her mom was barely cold in the grave and I was already moving on. That was her first shot, and when I told her it wasn't cool to say that in front of a guest, she just said she didn't care and stormed off to her room. Needless to say, that first meeting was a total disaster. After Carol left, I had to lay down the law with Jade, but even then, she told me she hated Carol and wouldn't accept our relationship. She said she'd keep acting out and make sure Carol didn't stick around. We had a huge fight that day, but in the end, I had to make amends because, well, she's my daughter. Luckily, Carol was super cool about everything and said she got that Jade was going through a rough patch and she didn't take her behavior personally, but she'd keep her distance from Jade from now on, and I totally respected that. That was ages ago, and since then Carol and I have been together. After dating for 4 years, we finally decided to tie the knot, and now, we've been married for almost 2 years. We love each other, and honestly, the only person who had an issue with this relationship was Jade. She used to be really rude and disrespectful to Carol at the start, and would make awful comments about her whenever she came over in the early days of our relationship. But when I told her I'd ground her and take away her phone if she kept it up, she started behaving a bit better. But she still gave her dirty looks and constantly told me she hated her after every single visit. After we announced our engagement, she had another meltdown, and we had a huge fight where she accused me of betraying her and said she'd never speak to me again. But then, we patched things up because we had to, but she still refused to come to the wedding. So things have been tough, and I've had a lot of trouble trying to juggle my life and keep both Jade and Carol happy. I'm just so grateful that Carol is such an understanding partner, and she never gets offended by anything Jade says because she's just that forgiving and kind-hearted. Jade is just that hard to be around, but for the past couple of years, she's mostly just kept quiet and kept her issues with Carol to herself. She doesn't interact with her stepmom at all, and even though they've lived in the same house for the past 4 years, they literally never speak to each other if they can avoid it. Carol does sometimes talk to her as nicely as she can when she really has to, but Jade won't even glance her way and acts like she's invisible. And I've made my peace with it. This is as good as it's going to get, and there's nothing I can do about it. Now, about a month ago, Carol and I threw a party to celebrate our 2-year anniversary. We invited a few of our friends, family, and some coworkers. We had the party at our place, just like our first wedding anniversary, so Jade was there. On our first anniversary, Carol and I had a similar bash, but Jade had opted out and gone to a friend's place, but this time she chose to stick around. I was kind of iffy about her being at the event, and in the end, she showed that my doubts were spot on. Once all the guests showed up, everyone was mingling, drinking, and having a blast. And then, out of nowhere, Jade declared she wanted to give a speech in our honor. Carol and I were stunned, and so was everyone else, because I think pretty much everyone knew that Jade didn't like my wife, and she had made it crystal clear when she skipped our wedding. So for her to say she wanted to give a speech, I instantly knew this couldn't be anything good. I tried to brush it off and told her it wasn't needed, but she was insistent. And eventually, we didn't want to make a scene, so we let her go ahead, and I still kick myself for that. She started by saying how she had never had a good relationship with Carol, which we all knew already, so it wasn't a shock. But when she said she wanted to work on that and build a relationship with her, we were all kind of thrown off, but I still had a feeling there was more to come. I tried to get her to speed up her speech, but she took her sweet time and finally said that the reason she wanted to work on her relationship with Carol was because she knew she'd always be an only child and really wanted the inheritance. But since I was totally under Carol's thumb, she wanted to make sure she didn't miss out on anything because of her rocky relationship with Carol. Then she went on to explain the only child thing, saying she was just lucky that Carol couldn't have kids of her own since she had recently found out she was infertile. And then she thanked Carol for ensuring she wouldn't have any competition and wrapped up her speech. After that, she went into a room, leaving all of us stunned by what she had just pulled off. It's true, a few months back, Carol found out she was infertile. We had been trying to get pregnant for almost a year but didn't have any luck, so we decided to get tested and found out she was infertile. In a way, we considered ourselves lucky because she was over 35, so it could have been risky for her too. But even so, she was really upset because she wanted a child, and so did I, but we made our peace with it and had been trying to move on. We never tried to hide it or be secretive about it around Jade, so she knew that last year, Carol was really upset around the end of the year because she had found out this heartbreaking news. But we never, ever expected her to bring something like this up at our anniversary party. And as soon as she finished that speech and went back to her room, Carol burst into tears, and everyone started trying to comfort her. Most of the guests bailated a little while after that because things got way too awkward, and I decided to drive Carol to her parents' place so she could crash with them for a few days while I sorted out the mess with Jade. What she pulled was totally out of line, and a real low blow to my wife. We'd put up with her disrespectful attitude for way too long, but just because I love her doesn't mean she gets a free pass to trash talk other people I care about. I was fuming, and as soon as I got back home after dropping Carol off, I told Jade we needed to have a serious talk. She acted like she couldn't care less, but I laid it out straight. She had to apologize to Carol and everyone else at the party and go back to therapy, or she could forget about college in the fall because I wasn't going to pay for it, and I'd ask her to move out the second she turned 18. I made it crystal clear that those were her only two options, do the right thing or lose me forever. She didn't even pause to think. She just snapped back that she didn't need me or the family because she was out of here, and that's why she made that speech, to go out with a bang and make sure we all knew exactly how little she thought of us. When I asked her where she planned on going, she said she was moving in with her aunt, my ex-wife's younger sister. That's when I learned that she'd been talking to her aunt for the past few weeks, and that was bad news because my ex-sister-in-law, Alice, 35F, was the absolute worst. She'd always been super jealous of my ex-wife and even tried to stir the pot by confessing her love to me, just for attention, the day before our wedding, which got her booted from the family. A few years after we tied the knot, her folks forgave her, but my ex-wife sure didn't, and I haven't had anything to do with that woman for who knows how long. But I guess she's still clinging to that grudge against me and was using my daughter against me, which is just crazy. I tried to tell Jade that she wasn't allowed to go to her aunt's or even talk to her, but she told me she'd be an adult in a couple of months anyway, so she didn't need to live with me. And then she said she wished I had been the one to kick the bucket instead of her mom, and that really stung. So after that comment, I decided I'd let her go because if she wanted to make a mistake like this, she was free to do so, and she'd face the consequences of her actions on her own. After she left, I brought my wife back home and we had a talk about what had gone down. Then it was my turn to lose it because Jade had been really hurtful to me and to her, but we had to let her go and it was super tough, but we made peace with it. Now almost a month has gone by, and it's been really hard for me not to try and care about my daughter, but she's made her own choices and I can't control her anymore, and I don't want to either. But 2 days ago, I got a phone call from her and Jade was in tears. I picked up the call as fast as I could, and when I heard her crying, I totally freaked out and asked her what was going on, and she told me that apparently, her Aunt Alice had initially promised her that she was going to take care of her and make sure she could go to college so she wouldn't have to rely on me anymore. But for the past month, ever since she left home and moved in with her aunt, she's been treated like a servant in her house and had to do all the work. Apparently her aunt was in pain and couldn't do anything for herself. But she was still doing it because she thought her aunt would have the cash to send her to college like she promised, and she decided to talk to her aunt about it that day. However, her aunt told her she didn't actually have the money, she just planned to help her with taking out the student loan, and even then, she'd need to find someone to cosign for her. And college is supposed to start in just a couple of months, and she's already been accepted into her dream school, so she needs to find the money, and that's why she called me now. She wants to come back and realize that she made a huge mistake by trusting her aunt. But instead of just letting her back in, I told her that what I had said before still stands, and she has to apologize to Carol before I take her back, and now she's pissed because she thinks that I don't care about her at all. So was I wrong for telling my daughter that she has to apologize to her stepmom before I bring her back home? Update 1. Hey, so I brought my daughter back home. And yes, she did apologize to Carol. Jade reached out to Carol a couple of days after I told her that I would only let her back in and support her financially if she apologized from the bottom of her heart, and I don't know if her apology was sincere or not, but she did what I asked her, so now she's back. She's been pretty distant from both of us since she's been home, but Carol is pretty much used to this kind of treatment, not me though. However, I'm willing to cut her some slack because apparently, for the past month, she's been working really hard at her aunt's house. Coming to that, she told me that her Aunt Alice had reached out to her on social media and said that they had never been formally introduced to each other because our families didn't like her much. But she wanted to get to know her sister's only child, and that's how they got to talking. I read the messages, and she had totally been brainwashing and manipulating Jade to turn against us, putting all these crazy ideas into her head. I found it really disturbing because it's been years since I've even talked to this lady, and she still seems to have it out for me. I haven't been able to chat with Jade much like I mentioned before, but from what she told me, Alice still really dislikes me. I guess it's because during those couple of years when she wasn't part of the family, she was living on her own, and I think she had to go through a lot, especially financially. She never got to go to college, and by the time her family started talking to her again, she already had a job and didn't feel like going back to school. So she just stuck with working, and now, since she doesn't have a degree, her options are pretty limited, and I guess she holds me responsible for it. Even though it's really not my fault, she was in her mid-20s when her family started talking to her again, so she could have easily chosen to go to college and get a degree, but she decided not to. I don't think that's on me. And I don't think it's my fault that her family cut her off. It was because of her own actions that it happened. Anyway, that's all I got out of Jade, and I'm just glad that she's back now. Even though she's keeping to herself, I know that she feels really bad about everything that's happened, and I know that she's going to try and do better in the future. I can just feel it. Some people are going to criticize my decision to let her back into the family, but she's my daughter. I can't just let her go. And honestly, not even Carol seems to have a problem with it because I knew that if she did, she would have told me. We know that she's a troubled kid, and she has agreed to go back to therapy. So we're hoping that it's going to help her, and even when she goes away to college, she has agreed to keep up the therapy sessions over video calls. As for the college funds, because of her behavior, I told her I'm gonna cover the last few semesters, but for the first few, she's gotta figure it out on her own, and she was totally cool with it. She said she gets why I made that call since she knows she was a nightmare to deal with before, and it's a fair punishment, so she's gonna have to either take out a loan or work her way through college like everyone else. But if she shapes up and fixes things with us, I'm gonna take care of those last couple of semesters. I think it's a fair deal and she's already on board. Now all we gotta do is wait and see if she's really gonna be better or if it's just all talk. Update 2. Hey. Oh, it's been a couple of months since I last checked in, and I'm really happy to tell you guys that things have been going great between Jade and me. Even Jade and Carol have been getting along pretty well, which is totally shocking. A couple of weeks after I posted that last update and Jade had come back home, things started getting better because Jade started making more of an effort to talk to us. For the first couple of weeks after she came back, she was super distant, and didn't really talk to anyone. But one day, while Jade was at home, I was at work, and Carol had a day off. The two of them hung out at home all day, and when I got back, I was shocked to see them laughing and chilling on the couch like they were old pals. Jade told me later that night that she had a blast with Carol and felt bad that she hadn't even tried to get along with her before just because of her own assumptions. But now, she was gonna make sure things changed. And when I talked to Carol that night, she had tears in her eyes and said that she had never wanted to replace Jade's mom, but she had always wanted to feel like she was really part of the family and not just my wife, and it was finally happening. I was thrilled because two of my favorite people were finally getting along, and up until this moment, everything has been so surreal that it really feels like a dream. Jade could only hang out back home for a couple of weeks before she had to head off to college, but those few weeks were enough for us to patch things up again. Even when she left for college, both Carol and I went to see her off and we had a tearful goodbye, which was pretty embarrassing for her later since a couple of people from her year saw her. Anyway, we hop on FaceTime every now and then and keep each other in the loop about our lives, and it's been great so far. And I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that it continues to stay this way because after a long time, I feel like I'm truly happy and I feel like I'm walking on cloud nine, to be honest. I've even been chatting with her therapist, and she has told me that she has shown a lot of progress in the past few weeks, and I'm really proud of her for that. It just goes to show that it's never too late to make amends with people who you thought were lost, and this might not be the case for every family, but I know that I was right to not give up hope in my daughter's case, and now, we are as happy as any other family, and I couldn't have asked for more. Update 3, hello. So a lot of you were asking me about what happened to Alice after my last update because I had not spoken about her or even mentioned her. Well, that was on purpose. I wanted to make sure that that update was positive and did not include any of the negativity on purpose. But since you guys seem to want to know, she is not part of the family anymore. And this time, I think it's pretty permanent. After Jade came back home and told us how Alice had been the one to turn her against our family and manipulated her into believing that I was against her, and she needed to stand up to me, I told my in-laws, her parents, all about it. We found out that she was really putting herself in a risky spot by doing this since she was totally dependent on her parents for cash. So after the whole mess with my daughter, my in-laws decided to cut Alice off and told her that they wouldn't be writing her any more checks. She got super mad and claimed it was their fault she didn't have a good job because they couldn't send her to college on time. But I think that's crazy because I know tons of folks who never went to college and still live decent lives without relying on their parents. I think it's more about her being lazy and not wanting to put in any real effort to better her situation. So I don't think she has anyone to blame but herself, no matter how hard she tries to pin it on her parents. My ex was never the golden child, like she claims. They were both treated pretty much the same, and I can back that up. But she always wants to play the victim and act like everything that's happened to her is someone else's fault. Anyway, she's been cut off by her family now, and the only way she can make it on her own is if she steps up and starts working hard. I don't even get why she thought it was smart to try and turn my daughter against me when she was still leaning on her family for money. It was a dumb move on her part, and now she's going to have to deal with the fallout. I'm just lucky that she can't get to me, so she can't bug me or try to guilt-trip me or blame me for what's happened. Because I'm sure that if she could, she'd go all out to make me look like the bad guy. I'm surprised she hasn't even tried to post anything online yet, but I guess she's waiting because she's still trying to win back my in-laws' support. But they've made up their minds and told her she's old enough now. If she still can't take care of herself, it's not their problem anymore. I think that's the right move and pretty much the only way to handle her at this point. Now, about my family, things have been great, just like I said in my last update. That was only a week ago, and this weekend, Jade came back home 3 days ago and said she wanted to go on a road trip with us. It was totally out of the blue, and at first, we were a bit hesitant about it, but after thinking it over, we decided to go for it. Life's short, we need to make the most of the time we have, and Jade hasn't wanted to go out with us in ages, so we really wanted to bond. She said she was tired of just talking to us on the phone and wanted to hang out with us for a while because she was feeling a bit lonely at college. Her roommate was away visiting family for a few days, so she wanted to spend some time with us too. We left early yesterday morning, and after a 6-hour drive, we finally made it to the beach. Everything was last minute, but we managed to snag a nice room at a hotel, and we're going to spend the next 2 days in the water before heading back home and her returning to college. She'll miss a few days of school, but but she doesn't seem to mind because she's just so thrilled to be here with us. This morning at the beach, I saw Jade and Carol having a blast in the water, splashing each other and laughing their heads off. I can't even tell you how happy it made me feel. I felt like I was finally at peace. So I can't really explain it, but there was this warm, glowy feeling in my chest. And then I joined them and we had a blast together as a family. In about half an hour, we're gonna head out to do some shopping and then grab dinner. Life is pretty amazing right now, and I just want to freeze this moment and stay here forever. I know that's not possible and we'll have to go back to normal life in a few days. But for now, I just want to pretend like this could be our forever and yeah, I'm just really happy. No more complaints, haha.